AI is making knowledge free, right? And if
Yes.
knowledge becomes free, what becomes more valuable? For sure, it's not just what you know. I believe is how you connect what you know. Well, I think meritocracy is only the baseline. It gets you into the room, but it does not determine how far you can go. So a lot of talented people, I believe they do not lack ambition or intelligence. They lack the first door. So I definitely think consumer AI is underestimated, and it's totally not just about productivity. It's about behavior, identity, aspiration, memory, relationship, right, and daily life. And that is a leverage, a huge leverage that the venture actually can bet on. Oh, definitely. I think at the application layer, technology should not be the mode at all. The mode should always be user behavior, consumer insights. If you understand why people use something, what they secretly want, what makes them feel seen, what makes their life easier, and what future self they are trying to become, you can build something much harder to copy. And that definitely is your mode. So I believe memory, follow-up, and relationship intelligence will become a very important category because the world is moving in an opposite direction. We have more contacts, more messages, more LinkedIn connections, but less real contact. When we talk about female founders receiving such a small percentage of venture funding, we also have to look at who is writing the checks. If women are still underrepresented at the partner level in venture, I believe today in the US, the number is 10%. My advice to aspiring founder is,
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the ULab podcast. I'm delighted to have with us today the founding partner of Y Plus Ventures and co-founder of Cresca and a Stanford GSB alum, Jing Kuang. Her journey sits at a fascinating intersection of ambition, agency, venture capital, consumer AI, and entrepreneurship. She's gone from Peking University to working at Procter Gamble, from Stanford GSB to leading large-scale cross-border mergers and acquisitions to building Y Plus Ventures, and now to building Cresca. One line from her writing really stayed with me. We don't get to choose where we start, but we get to shape everything that comes next. So today, we will unpack with her deeper layers behind that, the mindset, the frameworks, and the venture thesis shaping her work. Welcome, Jing. So delightful to have you on the podcast.
thank you so much, Hiroto. It's my honor. It's my honor to be here. And yeah, thank you for connecting. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
So, Jing, what we do is usually we go into the first segment that is about the journey of the guest, so that whatever you're doing today, we want to give our audience an insight into what led you to this moment where you are creating and building so many things. And so that takes us back to your childhood and how everything started. And you shared with me that when you were little, you were very naive and you did not think that any limits existed. And you've also written that growing up, you were, you wanted to be excellent and you wanted excellence into everything that also gave you leverage. And that leverage gave you agency. And you talk a lot about agency, right? So tell us something about your childhood, your journey, and what gives you the unstoppable spirit that you have today.
Wow. We're going straight into the deep end. I like it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a great question. So I think my unstoppable spirit, as I look back, did not single source. It evolved through the different life stages. Let me unfold it. When I was a child, it come from positive feedback. You are very spot on. So I was born and raised in China when the GDP growth was more than 8% every year. So I grew up seeing our life become better and better every year. And there were barely any traffic lights in my city when I was a child. but now we have high-speed trains and airports. The confidence and optimism, thanks to the macroeconomics, right, were rooted in my DNA. Also, I was lucky to grow up with parents who gave me unconditional support. They made me feel if I wanted to go to the outer space, the next day, I can make it. And that kind of belief was very powerful when I was young. I did not yet see any walls, so I was not afraid of running towards them. And later, when I entered my career, the spirit come more from mentors. So, for example, after Stanford GSB, I was given a leadership opportunity that, looking back, I probably was not fully prepared for. I was given the title of president and CEO of a subsidiary company under the top 4 financial group in China, overseeing the cross-border M&A, so mergers and acquisitions. Someone believed in me before I had enough evidence to believe in myself. So I think I just had the courage to say yes. But that yes totally changed my life. And now my unstoppable spirit comes from a different place. It comes from the light that comes back to me from other people. So as you mentioned, I wear multiple hats. I feel whether I am building my own startup and found the writing on Substack, building a fellowship, or sharing my thoughts with my students, I often feel that I'm only sending out a small beam of light, but then people reflect back so much more light than I expected. And I felt so warm because of the light I received, and that became my unstoppable spirit. So, for example, my subscribers tell me that something I wrote give them the language for their own ambition. And my fellow students tell me how my program and my journey opened the doors for them and gave them confidence to try something they thought would be impossible. So
Right.
I think at this stage, I think their courage, their growth, and their feedback give me energy back. And they make me feel that even a small light can travel further than we think. So yeah, I would say early on, confidence is given to me. Later, it is reflected back by my mentors. Eventually, it becomes a circle, and I send out little light, and other people reflect back much more. That reflected light become my unstoppable spirit and makes me carry on. And today, I hope to get the unstoppable spirit from you and the audience of the podcast too.
Thank you so much, Jing.
Mhm.
Yeah, you mentioned a very important thing, which is your network and the people you're surrounded with, right?
Mhm.
And that brings me to the next question where, a lot of ambitious people initially believe that meritocracy alone is enough.
Mm.
But in the world we live in, network, access, trust, and social capital also shape outcomes. What is your take on that? And especially because you're associated with the Stanford GSB network, right? Which is so powerful
Yeah.
in itself. So, what's your take on that?
Mm. Well, I think meritocracy is only the baseline. It gets you into the room, but it does not determine how far you can go. Once you cross the threshold of competence, what really shapes the outcome is character, integrity, authenticity, humility, generosity, how you treat people, and whether people trust you and whether they want you to help you when they have so many options. So I believe that in many social fields, business, venture, entrepreneurship, and even entertainment industry, right? Your ability matters, but your character compounds. And there's a saying, characters determine destiny, habits determine character, and details determine habits. So at the end of the day, it may be a small detailed thing you do every day that determines your fate and destiny. So I really think a lot of the old fashioned thing our grandma taught us are golden rules, like be honest, be kind, help people, respect people, and keep your words. And merit, yeah, may get you into the tent, but character determine how high you can fly.
True. So true. Yeah. And Jing, you run two very, very powerful, and I use the word powerful for a reason,
Mm,
initiatives and programs called Rooted In and Build Plus.
mm,
And my
yeah.
next questions are around that, um, Rooted In VC Fellowship, which you've started, is actually redesigning access into venture capital.
Mm,
So what specific problem were you really trying to solve through Rooted In when you started it?
yeah. RootedIn is very personal to me. In many ways, it is a program I wish it had existed when I was a student. So when I was at Stanford GSB 10 years ago, I was an international student. I did not grow up inside the Silicon Valley network. Venture capital felt mysterious, closed, and relationship driven. And a decade back, I came back and realized that the same chicken and egg problem still existed. So, and besides, if you are an international student, first generation immigrants or outsiders, you may not even know the language of the industry. So, Rooted In was created to close that gap. We wanted to give students the real work experience, mentorship, and network and the knowledge all at once.
Right.
Chicken and egg all at once. And the belief behind that is simple: trust can be built and network can be earned. And I believe that if you put your heart and soul into doing something, you actually can make it, no matter where you start. So a lot of talented people, I believe they do not lack ambition or intelligence. They lack the first door. And the Rooted In is designed to open that first door.
Yeah, I mean, when I read about it, I was absolutely fascinated and delighted by the concept. And
Mm.
just for our audience, I just wanted to ask you, Jing, that this is for Stanford students who are degree students, or for anybody who is in the Silicon Valley. If you could give us just a few details on that.
Yeah, right now we started by at Stanford campus. So it's for Stanford students, whether you're undergrad, graduate student, PhD, postdoc, um, but it should be the current students. And in the future, hopefully, if we have bandwidth and we have more partnerships, maybe we can roll out into other places and universities, even into other international countries. Yeah, but right now we are just keeping it the Stanford ecosystem.
Please do that. I think a lot of people who are listening to us in our audience might also have or be going through the same sort of challenges that you face, that you were
Mm,
in the Bay Area, you were new to the Silicon Valley, you did not grow
yeah,
up in the venture capital sort of ecosystem and the networks that are already present, and it gives you so much understanding of that right through the program. So yeah,
yeah,
if you start that, that'll be just so. I mean, we all look forward to it. And
great.
then
If we start
comes,
that, I will let you know, and your podcast can be the first place to share the news.
absolutely, absolutely, 100%. And I really hope that you start. I hope that a lot of people come together and make this initiative a lot bigger, a lot more powerful,
Mm,
and your vision spreads. Because what you've started, I personally connect to it as well. Because when I first came to the Bay Area,
mm,
this entire concept of VC and especially, the venture capital ecosystem, which is in the Bay Area, is so new. And for people who come in and they really want to get in and get access, it is
mm,
difficult, right? So,
yeah,
yeah, what you're doing is so essential and significant. So, thanks a lot for starting it. I mean, for taking the initiative. It is definitely personal to me as well. Coming to your
thank
next
you.
initiative, Jane, which is
Mm,
Build Plus, and that is you're teaching students how to build technology, but you're also teaching them to think like investors, right?
mm,
Opportunity mappers and what you call engineer scouts. So,
mm.
do you think the next generation of founders will need to become much more interdisciplinary in the way they operate, and how Build Plus is helping them do so?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, AI is making knowledge free, right? And if
Yes.
knowledge becomes free, what becomes more valuable? For sure, it's not just what you know. I believe, is how you connect what you know. So that's why I believe the next generation of founders will need to be interdisciplinary thinking and the ability to build a mental model from one field and apply it to another. So, for example, a technical founder may take an engineering way of thinking, right? Systems, constraints, are debugging, and apply it to investing. They may be much better at saying where opportunity is hidden, or a market is fragile. Or a liberal arts student may take ideas from art, history, storytelling, and apply them to engineering or product design. That may help them solve the problem in a way that a purely technical person would not see. So I believe that this kind of synthesis is very human. And AI, yes, it can retrieve information, summarize knowledge, and generate opinions, but the ability to connect distinct ideas, transfer intuition across different domains, and create new ones, that still depend heavily on human being. And so that's what we saw in building Build Plus. We discovered that a very interesting community of technical students who were excited to build the technology, but had not yet found any exact problem they wanted to solve. And that is the phrase of we call aspiring technical founders. So we ask, what if they learn to think like investor first? And that's where the idea of engineer scout comes from. And engineering scout is someone who can build, but also mapping opportunities. So they look at the market, they use the technology approach to source the signals, identify unmet needs, understand the founder market fit, and then they could answer the question, what should the technology actually be applied? So yeah, I think this kind of mindset is very powerful because the reverse is
Yes.
also true, right? So if an investor does not yet know what they want to invest in, maybe they should start by building. And building gives you empathy. Building gives you a real understanding of the
True.
constraints, users, and execution. So I don't think the founders and the investors should stay in separate lanes. The best builders will learn to think like investor, and the best investors will learn to think like builders. So
True.
yeah, and especially in the AI area, I think the most powerful people will not be just the specialists. There will be interdisciplinary translators. There will be people who move between disciplines, connect ideas that do not obviously belong each other, and turn the scattered knowledge into original insights. So that's totally my belief.
Yeah, no, I completely resonate with what you said that in the world we live
Mhm.
in, to understand the entire system in a holistic manner is so much more
Yeah.
important. It
Mhm.
is absolutely important to understand the parts in the system, but to go macro and be able to also
Yes.
look at the entire system is also so important, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. And Ching, you run Y Plus Ventures, and you describe it as human-centered by nature and AI
Mhm.
native by design. Venture capital has historically been such a trust, relationship, and intuition-driven industry. Structurally,
Mhm.
what changes inside a venture firm when AI becomes part of the operating system rather than just another tool that we use?
Yeah. Well, I think AI is already embedded everywhere.
Yeah,
So
it
in the
is.
past, I remember in the past when a startup deal came in, the first instinct might have been to search on Google, read a few reports, and call a few people, right? But
Right.
now, very often, my first instinct is to ask the ChatGPT, Cloud, or a different cross-check from different AI systems. And I ask the AI to help me understand the market. I ask it to validate assumptions, generate counter arguments, and then I often ask, what am I missing? What would make this company fail or succeed? So AI is not, yeah, I think AI is not just helping with execution, it's become part of the thinking process, right? So inside a venture firm, that change almost every step. In sourcing, I think AI can help identify the weak signals earlier. In due diligence, AI can help understand the market, compare the competitors. Basically, everything that a analyst usually do is to write a memo. So the memo right now is written by AI, but people need to provide context. So
Right.
structurally, a venture firm becomes much more leveraged, and the small team can really do work that previously required a larger team. And in some cases, I think one person plus AI can cover an enormous amount of the ground. So that's why I think AI is definitely more than just a tool. If everyone is using AI in daily life, and then it naturally become part of the operating system of work. At least in Silicon Valley, it is hard to imagine a serious new venture firm not using AI deeply. Um, but on the other hand, I also think the phrase AI native should mean more than using AI a lot. So to me, AI native means the firm is designed around AI from the beginning. It
Hmm.
changes the workflow, it changes the speed and the research process, due diligence process, the way we form and change the conviction, even in the way that we support founders, for example. So I think in that sense, AI native is really important in venture right now, especially under this AI era. And one thing, but I think one thing does not change: context. So AI is powerful, but the quality of its output still depending on the quality of the input, right? The input meaning the context we give it. So
True.
what data? So yeah, so what data we fed it, what questions we ask, what nuances we add. That's where the human-centered part matters. And so AI can process information, but I think human will still decide what matters. So for example, I can ask AI to generate different scenarios of counter arguments, meaning the risk. I think risks is so important in venture VC's mindset, but still human, we are deciding which risks are worth taking, because some risks are not actually not doesn't matter at all. So when I say Y plus is a human centered by nature and AI native by design, I mean both parts are essential. So AI gave us the leverage, but human context gave that leverage direction.
You shared an article on Substack, which I went through, and it it had the mention of coerce theory, right?
Mhm.
And you've written in that how AI reduces coordination costs and dramatically increases individual leverage, which we are actually talking about right now as well. And courses theory suggests that firms emerge because coordination is costly. So, if AI reduces those costs, do you think we'll eventually see much smaller but far more powerful venture firms and startups? And if handful of people can build what required hundreds, how does that
Mhm.
reshape the economics of venture capital itself?
Yeah, well, I think we're already seeing this. One
Yeah,
person companies are no longer a strange idea. And but also I think that's why cost theory is so powerful here. So firm exists because the transaction costs are high, and if it is
yes.
cheaper to build coordinated work inside a company than through the market, the companies will form and grow. Um, so I think the tricky part here is I think AI is not just lowering one cost curve; it's actually lowering both. So I'll explain. Yes, AI collapsed market transaction cost. For example, the negotiation surge, and that pushed the company to shrink. But AI also collapsed internal organization costs, meaning reporting, coordination, monitoring, right? So across teams, that lead the companies expand. So a firm that once maxed out, maybe managed by 10 capacities, that now can hold 100. So a 10 persons team probably can do what was used to 100 teams work. So I think the honest prediction is not just companies get simply as companies get smaller, is polarization. So like barbell, a giant companies, a giant platforms on one hand, the hyper leveraged team, the smaller firm on the other hand. So what gets hollowed out is in the middle, right? So the middle-sized companies that build, for example, proprietary data, regulation, those are fine, but middle-sized company will die when their actual product is coordination itself. For example, those agencies, outsourcers, integrators. And on that sense, I think those companies probably will see less and less and will be hollowed out. And scale still matters. So distribution, brands, capital, regulation, those are the new transactional costs. As soon as those transactional costs are here, I don't think the companies will disappear. And those big companies actually have a lot of leverage than small firms as well, right? So yeah, I think I think right now the companies will be there. So the more interesting question is, what is the new optimal size? For example, we saw the Cursor arrive at 500 million ARR with 50 people, and the Lovable arrived 1.8 billion valuation with 45, and 11, I believe 11 Labs arrived 100 million ARR with 50. So my guess is that the new sweet spot is roughly 20 to 80 people. My view is AI does not make companies smaller, but it changed the reason the companies need to exist. And this fundamentally changed the size and structure of the company.
Yeah. Jing, you're an investor, right? And traditionally, investors build edge through years of pattern recognition. But now AI can analyze massive amounts of market and behavioral data faster than humans. So, where do you think uniquely human investing judgment still matters and will continue to matter the most in the future when it comes to venture capital?
Yeah, definitely. Well, AI can analyze, you're right. AI can analyze markets, behaviors, and data faster than human. But venture capital is not a full standardized asset class. In venture, the reason you invest at the very beginning is often not the same reason the company succeeds later. And I will explain this. Market change, product pivot, right? Timing shifts. The founder is often the only relatively constant variable. So that's why we heard a lot when venture capital is saying, oh, the most important thing is investing in people, investing in the founders and team, because when they decided to invest in the company, maybe they're doing A, but when the company go public in the NASDAQ, they're actually doing B, right? So,
Absolutely.
So that's why I think human judgments still matter a lot, probably matter the most in venture, in rating people, context, and hidden dynamics. And the companies can fail not because the markets were wrong or the co-founder. It's actually a lot of time because the co-founders broke up. And sometimes co-founders conflicts is not logical. It's not logical at all. It can come from the working style. It can from the one small human interaction moment that creates a butterfly effect, right? So pattern recognition, I think, is often backward looking, and everything makes sense in hindsight, but looking forward is much more harder. That's why I believe the best investors still, the judgment still matters a lot. And besides the judgment, under that umbrella, I think honesty matters the most. AI can strengthen the process, but we should not pretend the future is fully knowable, and we should fit the context very honestly with AI, so AI can help us generate more predictable or more reasonable outcome.
Right. You know, while you were explaining the team and how important it is, I mentioned this in my previous pod also that Ilya's research, Professor Ilya Stribolev, he has written a paper called How Do Venture Capitalists Make Decisions? And in that, the finding is that 95% of venture capitalists rated founding team as the most important factor and as the important factor, and 47% of them rated founding team as the most important factor in
Yeah,
making a decision. So just
yeah,
it resonates with everything that you said right now. Yeah,
yeah, definitely. That research paper has been a golden standard for a lot of venture firm, including us. Yeah,
it
Ilya
is.
is a great teacher. Mm.
Yeah. Well, yeah, his contribution has been immense. So
Mm.
yeah. And so, because you're investor, Jing, and most capital initially, as you know, in AI, rush towards AI infrastructure and
Mm.
enterprise AI. But with Y Plus Ventures, you're deeply focused on consumer AI, right? What do you think
Mm.
the broader market is still underestimating about consumer AI? And where's the untapped potential? And why? What was your reason to focus on consumer AI?
Yeah. I think consumer AI is go big or go home. So the last decade, I think many we are the whole value or whole VC are benefited from the SaaS logic. So enterprise workflows, recurring avenues, and the sales efficiency, for example. But consumer AI is very different. It has the potential to create a massive winner takes all. And also is a VC foundable, if you can think about that, because AI enables personalization and automation and
Hmm.
emotional resonance at a scale we have never seen before. So I definitely think consumer AI is underestimated, and it's totally not just about productivity. It's about behavior, identity, aspiration, memory, relationship, right, and daily life. And that is a leverage, a huge leverage that the venture actually can bet on. And so, for example, I think people don't buy product only for utility. They buy a projection of their future self, and that's why I think
Absolutely.
that's why I think consumer AI is so powerful. It can meet people not only where they are right now, but where they want to become, and
Yes.
that's the future.
Yeah. And you often talk about behavioral shifts in resonance instead of
Mm.
just traditional SaaS matrix. In consumer AI, do you think changing user behavior itself is becoming a stronger moat than the technology?
Oh, definitely. I think at the application layer, technology should not be the mode at all. The mode should
Hmm.
always be user behavior, consumer insights. If you understand why people use something, what they secretly want, what make them feel seen, what make their life easier, and what future self they are trying to become, you can build something much harder to copy, and that definitely is your mode. And let's see what humans prefer, right? Humans prefer less friction. They prefer things that are easier, faster, more intuitive, and less mental demanding. um,
Absolutely. Yes.
yeah, right. So you need to tackle on those behavior and translate that into by using your product, by you either UI UX or the functioning your design. And also on the other hand, I think the deeper behavior shifts are often invisible first. For example, the marriage, right, children, social structure, education, or your community, everything, those social changes move like underground current, but when they converge, they become massive waves. So the baby boomer generation is definitely not like right now. People are kind of like the young people are hesitate to even get a find a date. So I think those trends are very powerful. So a great consumer AI company does not just build for today's behavior. It sends the behavior shifts before it becomes obvious, and that will become their moat.
Right. In a
Mm.
world where AI can generate almost infinite content and output, do you think trust becomes even more valuable and scarce? And because we're talking about humans and we're talking about behavioral shifts and we're talking about, the next generation of how people are going to adapt to technology, adapt to many things, in the consumer AI space, do you think consumer
Mm.
AI can help solve for it?
Oh, I think so. I think when AI, you're right. You're definitely right. When AI can generate infinite content and trust becomes more scarce. right? And
Right.
then so it become more valuable.
Yeah.
And if you remember in social era, the metrics like followers, likes, and impression means a lot. They become the language of inference, but I don't even know whether they are relevant in the AI era, because exactly like what you said, the
Hmm.
contents are infinite and the content itself becomes abundant. So the question becomes, who do I actually trust? I
That
believe,
is
right?
that is so important what you said right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe we may move from the public performance and the social media era towards a smaller, more trusted, more owner controlled circles. And trust is not built through quantity, it is built through quality and safety and a meaningful context. So I think consumer AI can definitely help here. Um, yeah, and if they respect the ownership and privacy and the trust and the safety, what we talk about, so people may not want their other relationships, right, preferences or inner circles displayed publicly and just for connecting the likes. I don't think so. I think the future of trust may be more private, more intentional, and more controlled by the individuals.
Yeah. No, such an important point that you made there. It made me thinking. And because you made that point, it makes me go to the next segment that you're building Cresca. And
Mm.
it feels much bigger than productivity software. It's relationship infrastructure for the AI era. What made you believe that memory, follow-up, and relationship intelligence would become such an important category? And
Mm.
tell us why and how you started Cresca and who's your co-founder.
Yeah, so Cresca starts with a very simple belief:
Hmm.
meaningful relationships shape our lives, opportunities, and happiness. But relationships are not built from generic knowledge. Relationships are built from specific memory, right? So, how do we remember people as humans? So, for me, memory is very visual and very story based. I can remember where I met someone, what they were wearing, what we ate, what the room looked like, and what they said in that exact setting. If I can turn a moment into a visual story, I can remember it.
Hmm.
And the magic of human memory is not only storage, it's retrieval. So most of the time, those memories sit quietly in the background. They do not consume any energy. Then a small trigger, right, can bring them back. So for example, maybe I'm eating lobster today, and suddenly I remember a dinner I had with someone months ago because we also had lobster that night. Or I realize, oh, three people in my life, right, the John, Mary, and Melinda, who seem completely unrelated, all love lobster. Then I might think, maybe I should host a lobster dinner and bring them together. So that is not just a memory, it's a relationship intelligence and its ability to connect the dots that do not look connected on the surface. So I believe memory, follow-up, and relationship intelligence will become a very important category because the world is moving in an opposite direction. We have more contacts, more messages, more LinkedIn connections, but less real context. So a
Sure.
LinkedIn connection is not a relationship. A contact in your phone is not a relationship. A relationship becomes meaningful when you remember context, follow up with care, and turn the weak ties into strong ties. So this became very real for me when my whole family moved back to United States 3 years ago. As immigrants, we had to rebuild many parts of our social world. We were reconnecting with old friends, alumni, meeting new people, remembering where people come from, what they cared about, how to pronounce their name even, and who their children are. What we talked about last time, it was overwhelming. It's indeed overwhelming. And the awkward moments are very human. and you meet someone, right? You add them on LinkedIn, but later you cannot remember the right context. Where did we meet? What did we talk about? And and how do I pronounce the name? And that what would be a thoughtful follow-up. So today, most of people manage this manually. So notes, memos, right? Notebook, um, the contact cards, and it's just fragmented and fragile. So that's why. So my husband Max and I started Cresca together. Yeah, I think in many ways we are opposites. I have a very strong memory for people and the context, and I'm very visual, and he's much more systematic. But his natural memory for these details is not as strong. So for years, for example, he used the multiple notebooks and he kept the copies, and so that he can keep track of people. But a lot of time he would ask me, "What is the context again? Who is that people?" And so I
Yeah.
was, yeah, I was joking that I think I was almost the human version of what we are trying to build. Uh, but
Yeah.
yeah, but that was also showed us the pain points, right? It's so clear. Relationships matter deeply, but managing them today is still extremely manual. It's not even web 1.0, it's web 0. So
Yeah.
in the AI era, it becomes even more important, because if AI knows everything, then what you know becomes less differentiated. What you know doesn't matter that much, but who you know and how thoughtful you nurture these relationships becomes much more important. So Cresca is built around that belief. It is not just a productivity tool. It is a relationship memory layer. It helps people preserve context, remember what matters, follow up thoughtfully, and turn those interactions, scattered interaction, into real relationships. Because I believe the future of relationships is not more context, which you stored in your phone. It's about more context.
Right. No, I think that's hugely important because I think the world we're living in, we are connected seamlessly like never before.
Mm,
Yet we
exactly.
are not, you know, how do I say it, not personally in touch with so many of our friends, our,
Mm,
people from our back from our school days, college days,
mm,
and there's so much that probably we don't remember and
exactly.
recall. So you made a very specific point that you're building your Cresca with your husband. But while we were talking
Mm.
before, you said that he's the one entrepreneur you would invest in if you could only invest in one. Why do you say that? If you could unpack for us.
Definitely. I always say this with a smile, because of course I'm biased. He's my husband.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, and this year is our 10th wedding anniversary,
Oh,
and
congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, and we have two kids together. So yes, I am biased, but also I feel I have collected a lot of long-term data points. So if I could invest only one in one entrepreneur, I would invest in him, because he has so many of the qualities I look for in a founder. He is very adaptive, he is resilient, he has a big picture of thinking, he cares deeply, he's a lifelong founder. And after 10 years of marriage and raising two kids together, I have seen how he handled the pressure, ambiguity, responsibility, and change. So in venture, right? So we often try to evaluate the founders through a few meetings. But in this case, I think I have had a 10-year of due diligence process and 10 years
Yes,
of data points.
true.
So yes, so I would say yes, I'll invest in him. And building together actually has also taught me something important about trust as well. And when you Really, it's fascinating when you have real trust and real unspoken understanding, like my husband and I, the friction cost becomes much lower. You do not need to explain every small things. You do not need to protect your ego all at the time, right? You can move faster, disagree more honesty, and come back the mission more quickly. So I think the conviction and the speed is really difference. And the kind of trust, of course, is not built overnight. It comes from a shared history, shared pressure, and shared responsibility. So yeah, I think this is really where we have the advantage, or if we can find the two people as co-founder, they have deep trust, they will unleash a totally different advantage here. um, Especially under this AI, right? We talk about a lot in AI. I think AI is very smart, but how to unleash AI's potential is very different from person to person, team to team. I think the
Yeah.
tool may be powerful, but humans' judgment and perspective determines how much of that power becomes real. So I think those judgment perspective matters. And if you can find a team with complementary skills that complete reality, I think that is so important as well, because it's not just a 1 + 1 = 2. Sometimes two people with a very different strength create something neither people can achieve. So for example, Max sees the structure and I see emotion, and Max sees product, I see narrative, and I am more like I see risk more, but Max sees possibility more. So those collision can create sparks.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, I think building with Max has reinforced something I already believe as an investor. The most powerful teams have trust. They have complementary skills, they have shared conviction, and they have a mission that pulls them through the difficult moments. You will know, I think it's much harder to break up as well.
True.
We have to pull through.
You said something really fascinating in the beginning that venture and entrepreneurship are not binary. Investors and founders are not sitting on the opposite side of the table. Can you
Mhm.
unpack what you mean by that?
Yeah, I think the fundamental question is how do we create value? So, entrepreneurship is usually the driving force. The founder has a vision, the founder has something that does not exist yet and decide to make it real. And that's a center of value creation. But venture can be a powerful catalyst, right? So, capital is not just the money. At its best, a venture brings a belief, network, talent, credibility, and resources around the founder's vision. It helps to turn an idea from something that one person sees into something many people are willing to build toward.
Right.
So that's why I do not like Shark Tank. The Shark Tank,
Really?
the reality show, oh my God, they're making VCs like a judge and putting founders to be chosen. And the real venture doesn't look like that way. The real ventures are always how do we add value and how do we create the pie bigger? So the best of founders and the best investors are trying to get to the same side of the table, right? Not on the opposite side of the table. And they're asking, yeah, the how do we align interest, for example? So I do not see venture and entrepreneurship as binary. A great founder could also be a great investor. A great investor can also be or has been a good founder. So there are no separate worlds. There are two roles. There are just two roles inside the same venture creation or value creation ecosystem. So, yes, I think for founders, understanding how investors think can help them communicate better the timing and the risk, right? Scale more clearly. And for investors, understanding how founders building can create more empathy, and you can understand the company is not just a pitch deck. It should not be. It should go beyond the pitch deck. It's execution, it's uncertainty, trade-offs, and it's all about people and people, the product behind that was people who are building it. So to me, the best relationship between a founder and investor is not judgment. It should always be alignment. And the goal is not for one side to win against another. The goal is to sit on the same side of the table and build something bigger than either side can build alone. And venture should not be the judge of entrepreneurship. Venture should be a catalyst for entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Beautiful, Jane.
Yeah.
The more you're so articulate about it, but at the same time,
Yeah.
the idea behind everything that you say, it comes from, I think, your lived experience as well as empathy. You understand people, and I think that is a very rare quality to have. That you
Oh,
yeah you and
thank
what you
you.
said. I think what the one word that will stay with me is alignment. I think that's so
Mm,
important. That the alignment of the two, and
mm,
one being the catalyst for for another, not sitting on the opposite sides. My next segment is about female founders and
mm,
access and investors. And I'm quoting here the PitchBook data, which shows that only around 6% of US venture deals in 2025 went to female only founding teams. And as both a female founder and an investor, do you think the deeper issue is capital access, pattern matching
mm.
bias, network asymmetry, or something even more structural inside venture itself? And why do you think those numbers remain so persistently low despite years of industry awareness and inclusion initiatives? And this number of 6% is just for the US, right? We're not even
Mm,
talking about the developing world and the other parts of the world. Why
mm.
is this number so low?
Yeah, I do think there are structural issues.
Hmm.
When we talk about female founders receiving such a small percentage of venture funding, we also have to look at who is writing the checks. If women are still underrepresented at the partner level in venture, I believe today in the US, the number is 10%. Then naturally, the networks and the judgment will also be shaped by that imbalance.
Right.
I remember reading research that pointed two important barriers for women trying to get to the top: network and role models. And those two things reinforce each other. Also, female founders have more advisors but lack sponsors. Those are different, very different word, right?
Yeah.
So yes, awareness matters. More people speaking more openly about this issue matter. More women investors and founders become more visible matters. Over time, I think that can change the system. But also, I want to be careful with the narrative because I think that's only part of the story. Personally, I prefer to say, oh, she's a great founder who happened to be female. And I do not love when gender label become the first lens through which we evaluate someone. I do
Yeah.
not think that is fair to female founders. I also do not think that's fair to male founders. So the best system is not one when people say, "Oh, she got founded because she's female," or "This is a DEI investment." That may be attention grabbing language, but I don't think this is always the most thoughtful framing. So the better system is one where we evaluate founders with rigor, right? The size of the market, the quality of the insights, the founders' trees, the execution capacity, resilience, or the ability to build something that meaningful. So then, if the founder happens to be female, that is part of her story. If
Yeah.
she happened to be Asian, immigrant, male, female, right? The technical, non technical, that's also part of her story. But it should not be the only story. So, of course, right? Humans have bias, investors have bias, and pattern
Yes.
recognition itself can become biased if we're not careful. So I think the goal is not ignore gender because the structure gap is real.
Yes.
We all know the numbers and percentage, but the goal is also not to reduce founders to gender, right? And the goal, I think, is create a healthier and more neutral playground where more great founders can be discovered, evaluated seriously, and backed fairly. And I think the equal opportunity is very important. And the goal is not lower the bar. The goal is to widen the door.
Y plus Ventures, you talk about solving the first mile with different levels of conviction, right? From a $5,000 handshake
Yeah.
check to larger follow on investments. At the earlier stages or at the earliest stage, before financials and matrix fully exist, what signals, traits, or frameworks give you conviction to back a founder?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think at the earliest stage, the reasons we do a handshake is exactly because there are not enough signal yet. If there were already a lot of signal, like the metrics, ARR, or anything, the data we can get, then we probably would not need a handshake check. We would make a regular investment decision like 200K for a deal. But at the trust, I think, yes, you are right. At the very first mile, many founders are still pre-product, pre-team, or even pre-matrix. The companies may not yet have enough evidence to make a venture decision. So the question becomes, what do you do when you see something promising, but the proof is not there yet? So for me, the handshake check is a way to put some skin in the game. It is definitely not about the amount of money. It is about the attitude behind it. I want the founders to know that I am serious enough to participate, not just to stay on the sideline and keep giving advice. A lot of founders, I think they spend a month talking to investors who never say yes, never say no, and never do any commitment. And I try to avoid that, right? If we're not interested, I would rather give a quick no. That's more respectful to the founder's time.
Sure.
But if I'm interested and even the conviction is still early, I would rather make a small commitment and begin the relationship in a real way. So at this very preliminary handshake level, I'm looking for a few fundamentals. First, of course, are the VC 101s. Is the market sizable, VC backable, and is the real opportunities there? And of course, the second, I would say, does the founder seem serious, not just excited, but serious about the problem, serious about execution and the learning and the startup? Then I will look for the founder traits, right? So the adaptability, resilience, and ownership. I think those traits matters more than the idea itself at the very beginning. And if those fundamentals are there, I will feel the founder is promising, then a handshake allows us to start the trust and conviction together. We can build on that together. So yes, it is a small amount of capital, but it changes the relationships and psychological where we right it change everything. And for me, the handshake check is not the end of the conviction, it's the beginning of the conviction.
Right.
The handshake should happen very early, very quick. Otherwise, it is not respectful to the founder's time, either as our time, right? So usually will be the first meeting or second meeting we'll decide to give the handshake. It's the testament. I think is you can treat it as a relationship builder if we see something that is promising, but yet, yes, we don't have data. And even founder, they may even don't have an idea. And so I think that it gives us a great bridge to build a relationship.
Jing, do you think geography really matters as an investor for you? Would you prefer somebody who is in the Bay Area, or you'd also do remote investments with startups not in the Bay Area?
Yeah, so right now we're doing more in the US is much more because I still think venture is one thing is a little bit like real estate. Is still location matters. It's not because that location is a physical location. It's about the insights.
Hmm.
It's about the market insights, for example, or market dynamics. I may not have enough knowledge on, for example, Brazil markets or Indian market. Yes, if I can find a partner over there, that might solve the problem, right?
Right.
But if you saying a US investor sitting here and to evaluate a far away geography startup, that investor may lack of just the knowledge or expertise. But the silver lining is that hopefully AI and can help us expand the expertise much faster. So I'm hopeful. Um, it's just that it takes a little bit time, I think, and also it takes a little bit of the conviction from the capital allocator side, because
Yes.
if the LPs are thinking, oh, we should put a local people to handle that investment for us, right? A lot of institutional LPs like family office or endowments, if they are thinking like that way, then the butterfly effect or ripple effect is that then the venture side will still be structured like that way. So yeah, I think that is a totally another topic, but I am hopeful that we can have some innovation in venture as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jing. It was an amazing, amazing session with you. And we've come to the last segment of the pod.
Mm.
And this is specifically for the audience that from someone who has operated across entrepreneurship, venture capital, mergers and acquisitions, and now building an AI native company. What advice would you give to founders and aspiring investors trying to build meaningful careers in this new AI driven world?
Yeah. Okay. So my advice I will give aspiring founders. My advice to aspiring founder is try to taste the feeling of being unemployed as early and as cheaply as you can. I do not mean unemployment in a negative way. I mean psychologically feeling of not being or belonging to an institute or not having a job title that defines you, not having a company structure, right? And ask yourself, how do I feel? And do I feel lost or do I feel free? Do I feel anxious or do I feel agency? Do I feel like I'm missing a like identity or do I feel like I'm totally become my whole self? I think this feeling is very important signal, not to yeah to be fair, not everyone needs to be a founder. It is completely fine to want a stable job, a paycheck, and a clear structure and a more predictable life. And
Right.
there's nothing wrong, right, with that.
Yeah,
But founders are often a different type of person. They may feel
absolutely.
yeah, they may feel uncomfortable inside the too much structure. They may feel more alive where there is ambiguity, and they may feel joy in being unemployable. And I got that concept from one of my teachers at Stanford, Irv Grousbeck, who founded the Center for Entrepreneurship Studies 30 years ago. Now the center was named after him. So he taught me something that stayed with me. He said, the biggest risk of entrepreneurship is not that your company fails. The biggest risk is once you taste the freedom, it becomes very hard to go back. And he called it constitutional unemployability. I love that phrase because it captures something very deep. For some people, entrepreneurship is not just a career advice or career choice, it is a way of being in the world. So
True.
for me, I do feel the joy of being unemployable. It gives me agency. It makes me feel I am responsible for my own path. It makes me feel fully alive. So yeah, whether you want to start a company, build a fund, or create something new in the AI era, I think this is worth testing the feeling very early. And do not only romanticize entrepreneurship in your mind, right? Try to experience a small version of it. Give yourself a
Yeah.
low cost window where you are not protected by a title or an institution, and see what happens inside you. If you discover you hate it, it is useful information. You can make a different choice with clarity. But if you discover you feel free, energized, and more yourself, this is also very important information. In the AI era, I think individual leverage become much higher. So one person can definitely build more, learn more, and create much more than before. But the leverage only matters if you know what kind of life gives you energy. So to summarize, my advice is taste the freedom early and taste the uncertainty early, taste the being unemployable early, because the real question is not about whether you can build something, because I think it is all about the real question is whether you can feel the joy when you're on your own and no one else is giving you permission. And if you can taste that freedom at a low cost, the return can be tremendous, even if the company doesn't work, because you will understand something fundamental about who you are. Yeah.
You've explained it so beautifully well that I have no words, because you actually explain it from the roots, that how to get the data
Mm,
point to actually self-evaluate what do you
yes.
like and how much can you endure. Because very
Mm,
rightly put, Jing, it's a entrepreneurship. A lot of people try it in thinking that it looks really glamorous from the outside, that, oh, you're doing your own thing, you're building something, you're
mm,
raising funds,
yeah.
meeting investors. But it is an arduous, it's a very, very tough journey. And when you have to
Exactly.
actually endure each day, sustain each day, and work through it, and the feeling of being, exactly, I resonate with you, that being unemployable gives me happiness, it gives me agency, and that's not the same
There
for
you go.
everyone, because
Yeah.
I still remember when I did my MBA, and I got placed at on through on-campus placements at FIS Global, which is a Fortune 500 company. And I did not join, and I came back, and my
Mm,
parents were like, "Why did you not take up the job? It's a Fortune 500 company. You got such a great placement."
mm,
And I told them that I want to test the waters. I want to get into
mm,
entrepreneurship. I want to build. And as I
yeah.
started doing that, I understood that I loved it so much. And exactly what you're explaining right now, that when other people around you have stable careers, a paycheck coming
Mm,
in every month, and when you don't have it, but you still enjoy the journey and the process, that in itself gives you the data point. So,
yeah.
thank you so much, Jing. It's such an amazing, listening to you is so addictive. I could probably go on asking you questions for the next 1 hour,
Oh,
but the time is limited, and I hope that we get to do another episode with you. Thank you so much for being on the ULAB podcast. It's such a delight to have you.
oh, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to talking with you as well. And yeah, it has been a great conversation. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jing.